So when I was young, when I was born, I was very young. Just a little guy. Actually, my mom told me, my late mother told me that I really fought to be born. And when I was born, I been fighting so hard, I was blue. But I'm not blue anymore, man. But anyway, but I grew up in an era when space travel was like on the forefront of people's minds, you know. The Apollo moon shots and all of those things, it was kind of a heady time. NASA, you know, was a big deal. You had toys that you could buy. I had a lunar crawler, which was really cool. You could put a little astronaut in it, fire it up, the thing would crawl. I mean, it was a cool era. You hear about people going to space. In my later years, in fact, I had as one of my parishioners a fine man who was an engineer, who his claim to fame was that he developed the ability, of course, you know, you never do this in a vacuum with other people, but he helped develop the ability for people on the ground to talk to Neil Armstrong when he was on the moon. I mean, what a cool thing to be involved in, right? So, and it was the time when I grew up of the movie 2001, The Space Odyssey. Anybody remember that movie? That's it. It was kind of a weird movie, though. When you're young, you see some of the stuff depicted in the movie 2001: Space Odyssey, freaks you out a little bit, makes you have bad dreams. But all this stuff was in the forefront of thinking. So space is big, right? James T. Kirk, I believe, said on Star Trek, "Space is the final frontier. Beam me up, Scotty." Spock did his thing. Forefront of thinking. So I got to thinking about the passage that Eric began our time with. And it talks about this incredible creator God that we worship. And so I was thinking about some of the stuff around space and how to get my mind and help us to get our minds around this immense God, this God that is so amazing that He created. So I found some stats that I want to share with you. Now, I know that stats aren't for everybody. Sometimes you hear these things and you just kind of gloss over. You're like, what? This makes no sense. But I want to just throw out some statistics for you. And for those of you who are kind of maybe physics people or you might be into this. So let me just throw this out at you. Did you know that the diameter of the known universe, mind you, it's an important word, known. The diameter of the known universe is 93 billion light years.
How much is that?
93 billion light years. Did you know that a light year has 5.87 trillion miles to it? How are you doing so far? You with me? Yeah, right, Tom. Did you know that the closest galaxy to our galaxy, which is the Milky Way, is 2.5 billion light years away? Did you know the galaxies kind of bump into each other? Freaky. How about that? Did you know that there are an estimated 100 billion galaxies out there in space? Notice the key word, estimated. Big. It's pretty big. Space is kind of big. And it goes on. Did you know that the number of discovered planets, mind you, discovered planets in the Milky Way are 350? Or as we say on the street, 350? Did you know that? That's a lot of planets. What can I wow you with? Did you know that the closest star to Earth is 4.24 light years away? Remember how many miles a light year is? 5.87 trillion? All right, now this is big. Space is big. I mean, when I look out at the stars, I'm just seeing a fraction of what's out there. Now you might be saying, okay, why is he talking about this? Well, the reason I'm talking about this is because when Eric was sharing that, it's talking about this God of the Hebrew. When that Old Testament passage was written, it was written way before Jesus walked the earth. Now, we understand that Jesus, along with the Holy Spirit, God, the Trinity, was in on creation, okay? But thousands of years before Jesus walked the earth, the prophet Isaiah shared those words. And I think it's important to understand the context in which Isaiah prophesied in such a way, said what he said. You see, the world at that time there was a worldview prevalent at that time, maybe better said, where people understood that there were all kinds of little gods, plural, little g, gods. All kinds of gods. And these gods they're kind of fickle. In fact, these gods, as people understood them, were really a lot like humans. They had human qualities. They got hungry. They got thirsty. There were different gods for different phenomena that happened in the world. Because these gods were kind of like humans, they played tricks on each other. It's kind of like the Three Stooges on a cosmic level, you know? And because these gods didn't really like working hard, that's where human beings came in. The gods used humans, as the prevailing worldview went, to do the hard work that they didn't want to do. Now, I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound like much of a God that's fickle, a God that's got weaknesses, a God that's thirsty and hungry, just like me, a God that wants to use me to do hard work. And that's why it is so profound that into this time of world history, God revealed to humanity, and He revealed to a people in particular, the Hebrews, the people of Israel, something that is incredibly significant and profound, and that is that there is one God. Understand, the prevailing worldview wasn't that there was one God. There were many gods, and these gods were like human beings. But the people of Israel understood there was one God, and this God wasn't like humans. This God never tired, never thirsted, was never hungry, because this God was the creator of all of the things that sustain life. In fact, this God, big G God, big O God, big D God, created everything. You know those statistics I'm assigning? All of those billions of light years and miles away and countless numbers of the known? That God is so big that God created all that. And all the stuff that's not known, all the stuff that's estimated, this God that we're talking about made all that too. Okay, Tom. Tell me more. Well, here's the more of it. See, I got blown away when I was reading this passage, and I'm going to read just a second from Mark. It picks up where we left off last Sunday. Last Sunday, Jesus, on the Sabbath, shows up at a synagogue amidst of all the people that were there, the scribes and other people, just showing up on a day on the Sabbath, just like any other day, when all of a sudden, here comes God. The thing that gets me, and that I was impressed with this week, is that if you take that God, who was so massive and so big that He could create all of the planets, all of the galaxies, all of the solar systems, who could create you and me, who could knit you and me together in our mother's womb, every life form that's out there, that's ever been and ever will be, you take that big God and you put it in one man. Now, one of the developments that's happened in our lifetime is concentrating things, right? Like you can buy, laundry detergent that's supposedly concentrated. Like instead of having a big honking scoop, you can have half a honking scoop, to do your laundry or whatever it is, concentrated. I was thinking, wow, think about this. Here's God, this immense God, the God of the universe, concentrated in one person, a perfect person, but God. Now think about that. That God showed up on a Sabbath day in time 2,000 years ago. And when He showed up, as we talked about last time, what did He do? One of the first things that He did was He confronted evil head on and said, look, evil, you met your match and then some. I'm the Lord of all life. I'm the God of the ages. Now get out of that person, because you don't belong there. Oh, and that evil spirit tried to resist, but he couldn't. So he called balls and he shook that man one more time on his way out. Because Jesus is greater than evil. You see, that's what happens when you got God concentrated in a person. Uniquely for all time in a person. You take that God of the planets and the stars, and you concentrate it in a human being. You talk about force. You talk about power. And on that day, he showed up at the synagogue. Now it says that it wasn't all, this is the same day. There's something more happened. So that's where we're going to pick up reading. This is from Mark chapter 1, beginning of verse 29. Picking up where we left off last week. All right, so let me walk this with you. Let's walk together through this. It says, and immediately Jesus left the synagogue and entered the house of Simon and Andrew. Now Simon is Peter, that you've heard of perhaps before, the Apostle Peter, Simon Peter. He went into the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Now it says Simon's mother-in-law lay ill with a fever. Now by the way, at this time, when a person had a fever, folks thought the fever itself was an illness. They didn't necessarily see it as a symptom of something else. They didn't know that it was like my mom and my wife would say, you know, you got a fever, and that means the little soldiers are in there kind of fighting the germs. It was more like, wow, they got a fever, something's up. In fact, the people had a fever, they sometimes believed it was because of evil. An evil spirit or something was in there. So Jesus goes next door, if you will, same Sabbath, and he goes into the home of Simon, Peter, and Andrew. James and John are there, and he meets Simon's mother-in-law. She lay ill with a fever, and it says immediately they told him about her. And what does Jesus do? It says he came and took her by the hand and lifted her up, and the fever left her, and she began to serve him. Now I want to pause there because I think a lot of times we hear that and we're like, jeez. I mean, dudes, give her a break. I mean, she was just sick, and you're making her serve you? Isn't that just how guys can be? But here's the thing. I'm going to invite you to look at it a different way. And here's a different way of looking at it. You see, Simon Peter's mother, I believe, was profoundly grateful for what Jesus did. You see, because when the God of the universe comes walking into your house, life happens. And I believe that she did what you would do. And that is, in faith, when something happens and Jesus does something in you, what do you want to do? But you want to respond. And how do you want to respond? But you want to serve him. Has Jesus ever done anything in your life where you've said, man, Lord, I am so thankful, I want to serve you. What can I do? How can it be? So I don't think it was a woman's place is in the kitchen. I think it was more like, here's a person who was set free from their ailment. And they're like, oh, Jesus, what can I do for you? I want to invite you to have that mindset of serving. When the God of the universe comes walking into your life and begins to do something in you, and you have an opportunity to follow him and to allow him to work through your life and to begin to respond to him by serving and however he would fashion you to do it, take up the challenge, friends. Be bold. Live in faith. That's one thing I see here, and one challenge I'm going to put out there for you. And then it goes on in verse 32. It says, that evening at sundown, they brought to him all who were sick or oppressed by demons, and the whole city was gathered together at the door. That must have been a big door. Well, they had a big front yard, but really probably not. People were spilling out in the street. The whole town. I mean, when you see amazing things happen, and apparently they were amazing things. I mean, again, remember, the God of the universe is bringing healings and exorcisms. Yeah, people are going to show up. Let me see what's happening. People are crowded around the door because there's something amazing going on. You know, for some people, they're probably thinking, oh, this is spectacular. Wow, what's he going to do next? Wow, what a show. Maybe I'll get his autograph. You see, there was a peril to this because as the God of the universe shows up in skin and he begins to bring healing and wholeness to people, he begins to exorcise demons out of people's lives. Well, it can be one of those cases where people are so caught up in the show that they don't realize the greater thing that Jesus Christ is representing. You know, it's quite a thing to say that the God of the universe showed up at your house. Apparently not everybody was seeing that and understanding that. You know, I think even in my time, in my life, there are times when I can see God as some kind of big cosmic vending machine. My first job out of college was in retail management. I remember one of the things that they impressed in our little brains as we were getting our training, and that was the customer is always right. And of course, everybody in the room knew that the customer was not always right. But that was the mantra. And sometimes we can bring that to our relationship with God. You know, Jesus, here's what I need you to do for me, Brian. If you really exist, make this happen for me. If you really love me, fix that for me. Jesus, open that door for me. Thank you. I'll go about my business now. You take care of that for me, Jesus. You know, sometimes I can bring that attitude. God help me for that. But that can happen. Where we can begin to see Jesus as somebody to fulfill our customer service requests, right? That we can see him as this cosmic vending machine. Part of the trap of these healings and exorcisms where people would mistake the miracle for the substance of what was happening. The substance of what was happening wasn't the miracle, wasn't the exorcisms. Those were evidences of the greater thing that was happening, and that is that the God of the universe showed up in human form as Jesus the Christ and came to set the captives free. God help us when we only want the sound effects, the light show, and we miss the relationship. He's calling you to a relationship. He's calling me to a relationship, us together as the body of Jesus. I think part of the evidence that Jesus was concerned was these evil spirits know who he is, but he won't let them talk. You see, the evil spirits, they're spirits, they're connected with these things that are kind of beyond words and beyond all the things that we think of and tangible things we see in the world. They knew who they were up against. But Jesus would not allow them to speak. Why? Because people might misunderstand who he is and what he's about. So what does Jesus do? What does he do in the midst of people misunderstanding and looking for the show? He absents himself from the situation. He gets up early. In fact, I should read that because I didn't read that to me yet. Listen to this. And rising very early in the morning, it says, while it was still dark, Jesus departed and went out to a desolate place, and there he prayed. No. Jesus prayed. You see, Jesus prayed because he knew that his connection with God, with the Father, was the only way that he could live out his mission. He knew the only way he could live out the mission that had been entrusted to him was if he stayed connected to God the Father. And so in the midst of all these people misunderstanding him, he goes away. He's got to recharge. I got to refocus. I want to suggest that to you as a practice in your life as well. You know, there's a lot of stimuli out there. There's a lot of noise. I want to encourage you to cultivate some silence, some times where you check out and just check in with Jesus. You got to do that, friends. Even if you're the so-called type A, got to be moving all the time. Jesus was the perfect human being, and he knew he needed to do it. So do you and me. So do we. He checks out because he knew what his mission was about. Now, I think it's fascinating. It says, and Simon and those who were with him searched for him, and they found him and said to him, everyone's looking for you. Bless you. Now, I think part of what's behind that is Simon and the others are saying, Jesus, like, there's still a line of people that want to be healed. And I don't know if you've forgotten what you're supposed to be doing, but like you might want to come back and quit this silliness and get working. But Jesus will not be controlled by the whims and the desires or the spectacular, or even good and worthy things that could be done. See, Jesus is on purpose. He is on mission. And his mission wasn't healings and miracles. His mission was to proclaim the reign of God. And as he proclaims and brings the reign of God, people get healed and miracles happen. He wasn't going to say, oh, well, okay, people are expecting me. I better go do it because I want to be a people pleaser. He lived the mission that God had placed upon him. And it's how it needs to be for you and I, to live out the mission. To be a disciple is to follow Jesus, not control him. And I gotta say, there are moments when I'd like to say, Jesus, look, I don't think that's a very good idea. Jesus, I read your teaching on that. It kind of bothers me a little bit, and I don't get it. I mean, things like that happen. Jesus challenges me all the time to get out of my preoccupation with myself and to get preoccupied with him. And so he tells the apostles straight up, we're going to move on. I know there's need here and concern. I've done what I'm supposed to do here for now. I'm going to move on because this is why I came out. You see, Jesus is more than we think. It says in 1 Corinthians that Jesus is the power of God and the wisdom of God. And in his power and in his wisdom, he has been on mission where God has led. Now you and I might think, well, now wouldn't that be cool if he would show up here today? That would be so awesome if Jesus would come in the doors, and hopefully, preferably, he'd come in the enter doors and not the exit doors. But still, wouldn't it be cool if he came in? And friends, I'm going to tell you, he's here. He's here. You see, when Jesus came 2,000 years ago, he didn't just come in and say, okay, I'm going to give them 3 years, and then I'm going to check out, and they'll be on their own again. He came decisively to establish his reign that brings the captives free, that heals affliction, that changes life. And that same Jesus is here right now. He's in this room. And I dare say that he's even in the hearts. Hopefully he's in the heart of every human being that's in this space. If he is not in your heart, I challenge you to invite him in. He'll come in. It'll be cool. It may be that there's some stuff that needs to get out of that heart, but he can make that happen. He'll love you through it. But we are the people. We are the body of Christ. That means the whole world looks to us to know what Jesus looks like. Whoa. But he is present here. He invites you and me to follow. He calls us to follow. The concentrated power of the God of the universe in one person is now in our midst. You want life to be different? Then follow him. Because he brings life. You think your life is humdrum, is going nowhere? Let me tell you something. He'll bring life. You allow him to bring life. Oh, he's going to bring it. He's going to bring it. You think, oh, on my vim and vigor, I've got this, God, I don't need you. Well, guess what? What did Eric read? It says something that's profound. Listen to this. Hear it again. He says, have you not known, have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He's the creator of the ends of the earth, all those billions and billions of stars, and it's Jesus who was in on that. Jesus who's the concentration of that creator God. He has shown up. It says he does not faint or grow weary. Not like those little g gods that even today we worship and we think about, oh, you know, like money or status or prestige. Those little gods that we create, that we try to feed because they're insatiable. Oh, no, 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 no. This is the creator God we're talking about. He doesn't faint. He doesn't grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable, it says. He gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might, he increases strength. You ever been faint? You feel faint today? Well, he gives power to the faint. He helps the weary to stand. He makes the weak knees strong again. That's this Jesus we're We're talking about, it says, even youths shall faint and be weary. Young men shall fall exhausted. But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. That's Jesus. That's Jesus. And he's shown up. You gonna let him in? You gonna let him in? You gonna